Hey everyone, welcome to episode 151 of the Custom Apparel Startups Podcast. Take two. You don't need to know that, but you kind of do, because Mark Vila and I are expert podcasters, but we still make mistakes all the time. So you're going to hear a slightly rehashed version of what we just said that you couldn't hear anyway.
So redo it for about 3 minutes worth of the podcast, maybe more. I love it.
Yeah.
Episode 151, what's the best t-shirt printer?
Yeah, definitively, it's that's the question: is what is the best t-shirt printer? Mark, you have 3 seconds. Go.
I ran out of time already.
Okay.
All right. So this is what we are going to do, though. We're going to help you answer that question, because it's a question that I get asked all the time. What's the best printer that you guys sell? And I usually answer that with a question. Or if people ask me, what's my favorite printer to use? And that changes. So really the purpose of this podcast is to get you started on the right foot, know what questions you actually should be asking, because the question is not what's the best t-shirt printer.
Right.
There's other questions, right?
It really is, and I like what you have. And there's no best t-shirt printer, because everybody's business is different.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's going to be different. Everybody's goals are different. Everybody's budget is different. And, the way, choosing the best printer could be down to the way you like to do things, the way you like to work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to be honest. One of the things that we're not going to talk too much about today is screen printing. Right. But if you love making things with your hands, and you are a get down and dirty and like to figure stuff out, in kind of a commercial industrial environment, then maybe you want to be a screen printer, right? Because it fits the way you work and what you want to do.
Yeah.
But what most people are going to base it on is, what do you want to make? Isn't that right? Isn't the kind of shirt that you want to print the determining factor, Mark?
Yeah. Al, I would say that's definitely a huge portion of it, what you want to create, right? Because if you want to create shirts that is for sports apparel, and you want to do game day jerseys and sportswear stuff that's rough and tough, solid colors, you're probably going to want to choose a different technology than if you are wanting to do, say, fishing gear, moisture wicking, sports apparel, really lightweight prints. So those are two very different things that I would choose two different technologies for, and we're going to help you kind of walk through that. And I was thinking, when we first started talking about this, actually, the first time we went through, I didn't say this, but now that we've gone back in time,
okay,
somebody might say, and I've said this before if you're a podcast listener, but what's the best vehicle to buy?
Oh yeah,
I want to buy a new vehicle. What's the best one? Right. So vehicles go from the range of, I don't know, I guess the real range might be like a tricycle or a scooter, all the way up to like a jumbo jet,
okay.
a space rocket, right? But most people are probably talking about cars and trucks. And then immediately I said cars and trucks. So what's better, a 4-door pickup truck, or a compact electric car, or a sports car? What do you want to do with it? I wouldn't recommend a Lamborghini if you own a roofing company and you probably are trucking around roofing supplies. Probably not the best option. It'd be interesting.
Yep.
It'd be cool. I wouldn't want to give you money for a roof, but
I want to see the rack that you have to put on top of the Lamborghini.
Yeah. And on the flip side, if you are a maybe an Uber driver or a DoorDash driver, a giant dually 4-door diesel truck probably is not the best option for that. That gets about 5 miles to the gallon or something like that. So,
but you're right. They're all good vehicles.
They're all great. Yeah.
And they're all like perfect for the purpose that you buy them for.
Yeah. And some of them in completely different classes might cost the same amount. A 4-door pickup truck that can haul a giant boat could be the same amount of money as a Tesla, or same amount of money as a really nice Mustang, or same amount of money as the highest end, a quarter Camry, so it's like so the point is that there is no right answer to that. Leading into, there's not a right answer to what's the best printer. It's the right questions to ask.
I like that.
So what I had thought here was there was a lot of different questions, and in the beginning you had mentioned budget being important, and
Yep.
what you want, how you like to work being important, and those are important. But I think it really the first thing you need to ask are three questions, which is what do you want to sell?
Yep.
These are simultaneous questions, not in order, because they change depending. What do you want to sell? Who do you want to sell it to? And then where do you plan on doing this? How do you plan on doing it? Where do you plan on doing it? Are you gonna do it by yourself in your garage? Are you gonna do it in half of a spare bedroom? Do you have a shop that already exists? Do you have a crew?
Right.
And before we asked, what do you want to sell and who do you want to sell it to? Fishing gear to fishing persons,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that,
And we've got a bunch of episodes just on kind of picking a niche market.
yeah,
Because Mark is right. If you are going to sell to, if you're going to sell concert tees, or if you're going to have or band shirts or something like that, you're, it makes a difference because
yeah,
those are pretty much all black cotton tees. If you want to sell fishing shirts, if you want to sell girls decorated dresses, cheer stuff,
yeah. The shirt you're
there's
wearing
just
versus the shirt I'm wearing,
yeah, I mean,
you
there's
know?
a huge variety of things you can sell, and it's down to who do you want to sell it to. So what you want to sell is the kind of items.
Mm-hmm.
Who you want to sell it to is what your niche market is.
Yeah, and that's great. And I also think as we're answering these questions, I'll say, one answer that is going to be wrong always is what do you want to sell everything? Who do you want to sell to everyone? Okay.
Oh yeah, I got
Um,
one of those. I
yeah,
got one of those
you're
just the other
you're
day.
you're not Walmart. And even
Yeah,
Walmart doesn't do all that. Even Walmart doesn't sell everything to everyone. And
yeah,
and that's them. That's Amazon. You're not Amazon.
right.
So if you want to say I wanted to sell everything to everyone, I would say what's the best printer? All of them. You need them all, and
Yes,
you need
good.
every shirt available, right?
Right,
Because and that's not the answer you wanted, right? Because you wanted to start with one. Okay, so you need to answer the questions: what do you want to sell? Who do you want to sell to? With a reasonable niche answer. And it's okay to have a few possible answers, I think. You might be dancing around, like I'm thinking fishing, but I'm also thinking
yeah,
outdoor gear. Okay. I mean, just start to just gather some of these things and it will
right.
come together. It'll
Because
come
because it's
together.
not like you're going to buy a one piece of equipment that will only print on fishing shirts.
Hmm.
Or one
Yeah.
piece of equipment that only does will only print on bandanas.
That's a cool
Those you're
machine.
probably not going to get.
Yeah.
But also, I think the where do you plan to fulfill the orders is a good one too, Mark, because of the idea of space and
Hmm.
power.
Hmm.
If you're going to work in your back bedroom, if you're going to start as a side hustle at home, then something that takes up a 50 by 50 foot space is probably not going to work well.
Yeah.
If you are going to set up business in a retail shop, then something that makes a lot of noise, or is very messy is probably not going to be appealing to your
Hmm.
retail customers. So, what do you want to sell? Who do you want to sell it to? And where are you going to make your stuff? Are important considerations to start with.
Yeah, yeah, and then I would say the things you shouldn't ask yet because we're not ready for this yet. It's
Yeah.
important to walk yourself through a process.
You're so
So
disciplined.
yes, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So things we aren't going to ask yet is I don't ask. I don't want to talk about budget yet or how much this stuff costs,
Yeah.
right? And there's a reason why. Um, we definitely don't want to talk about what technology you heard of or what some other people are doing or what your friend's business is doing or what some stranger online that you don't even know if is a real person said in a Facebook comment, right? So,
Right.
or
About
Twitter.
and that,
So
and that goes for about what they like or don't like.
what they don't like, what
If
they heard
if
is the best, which one you shouldn't buy, which one you should buy.
if any sentence at this point starts with "I heard that," then
Mhm.
then just stop that train of thought
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah. Because let me tell you a secret here. Everything that we're naming here, there are thousands, if not millions, I don't even know the numbers on all these things, of people who use these printers all over the globe, some of them for decades, making money continuously still, with
Yeah.
printers they've had for 5 years or 10 years and are still making money with that same printer, are in business and make a living doing it. So whatever you heard that's on this list, if you heard something really good, okay, that might be that person's story. If you heard a failure, it's somebody who failed at it. And if you heard somebody doesn't like something, well, again, what's the best printer? That one was not the best for them. It doesn't mean it's not the best for you. Okay.
Good point.
And there's one other last question is, what else do I need to buy? Right? Like a heat press.
That's important.
What heat press should I get? Don't ask that yet because you haven't picked your printer yet.
Okay.
So you're going to go
online. That makes a difference. They match.
Yeah, they matter. So you're going to go online and say, what's the best heat press? And again, I'm not even going to repeat it because it's the same story I just told you. And they're going to tell you the wrong answer for all the reasons I just mentioned above too. Right.
And we get that all the time too.
Yeah.
Someone buys a DTG printer and gets the wrong heat press, or Digital Heat FX gets the wrong heat press, and okay.
Yeah. I've seen people wanting to use a Qriket iron for white toner printer transfers. I actually had that question the other day. So, is the Qriket iron a good heat press? Probably. There's a ton of them out there. There's a ton of shirts made with a Qriket heat press. It's good, I'm sure. Right?
It's good heat. You are the press.
Yeah. So, okay. So if you're making hobby stuff at home and you're spending your own money and you're not borrowing anything and you're saving pennies and you got, I don't even know how much it costs, $150, and you want to make just little t-shirts for you and your friends to play in, it's good. So there's an answer to that, right? So let's move on from that. So what's a good heat press? What type of X should I get? What type of shirts should I buy? Are questions you need to ask later when you know what printer you're going to use, right? And then we can talk about answering that question.
So how are we going to break down talking about these different technologies?
So in my head, I thought of I'm going to think of some ideas, right? And maybe we can even say some out loud, right? But you're going to think of the questions asked above. What kind of stuff do you want to make? Who are you going to sell it to? Where are you going to do it? Right? That's kind of, in my opinion, is the basis of this. So it could be shirts for fishing, right? And it could be I'm going to sell it on the internet to people who fish, and I'm going to make it in my studio apartment. Okay. That could be one. Another person could be, I have a shop. I'm trying to break into a new market of selling prints on demand to people who want a really super high quality print, because I want to charge like $40, $50 a shirt for these things. And I want them to be the best t-shirt they've owned. And I have a shop where people walk into already. Yeah. Right. So that could be another scenario. So you can feel free to use those examples if you want, Mark, or you can just completely ignore them later on.
No, I like that idea. I think that we just have to make sure that we have a scenario for each one of the technologies.
Yeah, and we can add
more. And that we talk about the pros and cons and kind of the opportunities won and lost. The available opportunities for each kind of technology.
Yeah, so I think that's good, right? You have an idea in your head, maybe or maybe not already, right? If you're listening to this, you may have paused this and came back to it a week later with your idea. I'm okay with that. I'm okay if you do that.
Okay.
Or listen to the whole thing and then you come back and listen to it again, but now you're kind of got an idea in your head. Or maybe you already have 2 or 3 ideas and they're floating around, and now you're kind of going to able to make a decision. It's going to be very simple, just like the car and truck scenario. You don't have to be any guru or genius to hear the stats on a pickup truck versus a Mustang versus a Toyota Prius to determine which one is probably best for you. Same as this, right? So let's talk about the different technologies, the different printers. And I didn't put pro or con in my head on this, because I feel that that's it's an unfair way to represent some things, because a
Okay.
con to one person is not a con to another.
Yeah. Let's rephrase that is, options you may or may not have.
Yeah, options you may or may not have, things that may or may not matter to you,
Yeah.
right?
So,
Yeah. So that's important. That's important too.
well, I don't mind your fishing shirts as an example.
Hmm.
Especially if you're talking about noodling shirts,
Okay. Yeah,
you know,
that is a type of fishing.
because I mean, so sublimation has been on our minds quite a bit lately. We just finished a
Mm-hmm.
podcast with Vic Patel from Sawgrass. We're really excited about that relationship. And we've got Vapor Apparel now on the website, on colemanandcompany.com, which is a premium, beautifully designed, sublimatable set of shirts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're thinking about that a lot. But in the fishing, like if I was going to open up, let's say my niche market, I'm in Tampa, Florida, and I've got a lot of contacts in the marine industry. Fishing, tourism based around fishing, boating, all that kind of outdoors and outdoor adjacent physical activity.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, where would you start?
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's a good thought. And I think it would be a good idea, now that you've maybe, I think we could flip this slightly.
Okay.
Okay. Once we describe the technologies, in the end, the listener will know which one based on what you just said,
Okay.
and we will as well.
Sounds good.
So, because I think it's really important to teach someone how to fish, in so many words.
I like that. Would you provide them with a fishing shirt, or would you sell them a fishing shirt as part of your coursework?
I think teaching them how to fish means know that they picked the right printer, and then they printed their own fishing shirt
Okay.
on their
Gotcha.
own, like
Okay.
in a
Go.
fictional like 6 weeks from now. So, so let's just go into each technology then and think about that. Think about that fishing shirt concept, and then I also want you to think about the other example that we give, and we could just keep these in our minds as we're listening to things. The other one was, you own a shop, or you have some sort of traffic walk in, and you want to sell really premium t-shirts, digital images, crazy cool art, big prints, and you want it to be the best t-shirt anyone's ever owned. That's kind of like the vision you have, is like, when they buy this shirt, it's going to be $40. It's going to be the best shirt they ever owned. They're going to walk into the store and maybe pick the shirt that they want, the design, or have custom design work done that they'll pay for. And then they're going to get this shirt, and it's going to be awesome. People are going to ask for it. It's going to be their favorite shirt. Okay. That's a second scenario. Okay. So let's talk about technologies. Do you want to start with DTG?
Yeah, it's right on top, and it's one that I love. Right, I love direct to garment printing, and now, at ColDesi, we've had the DTG digital line of direct to garment printers for a long time. We've got the G4, which is an amazing, technologically fantastic machine, and the Epson F2100, which is a great way to get into the direct to garment printer business. So, those printers range from about $15,000 up to $20,000.
Okay.
I think it's important to kind of put that out there up front, even though we're going to talk about money later.
Yes, it's really important. Yeah, I think that's good. And part of the decision-making process is I'll lay it out early, since we might talk about money. The reason why you don't want to talk about money, which is in the very, very beginning, is because if you've got a good business plan and you have a reasonable credit, or a way to borrow money, right? Whether it's through a bank or a credit card or a leasing company or a friend of the family. If you have a good business plan, the cost of what you're buying does not matter.
Thank you.
Okay, because if you're buying a restaurant, it might cost you $100 $50,000 to open up your restaurant. Okay. If you have a good business plan, it's a profitable restaurant, but it cost you 150 grand. Well, if you were able to borrow the money and you had a good business plan, you've made it. Right.
Yeah.
And so anything goes in all these different directions. If you've got a good business plan, then it doesn't matter how much the printer costs because you have a good plan and a means to borrow the money. If the plan is not good, then why would you do any of this?
And there's this kind of inverse relationship between the cost of the printer and the cost of the materials it takes to make a shirt. So, there's a lot of factors that go into the profitability for each one of these.
Yeah.
But we'll start with DTG. DTG is direct to garment printing. And basically, this is the one where you're actually printing right onto the shirt. You're not making a transfer. You're actually loading a shirt onto a platen, pushing it into the printer, and you hit print just like you're loading a piece of paper into an inkjet printer at home. Right? So you're printing directly on the shirt. And what that does is it gives you 10 out of 10 quality. I mean, these are, if you have seen somebody wearing a shirt and just, you thought it was beautiful. If you've seen any of the samples that we put pictures up and things like that, they're amazing quality shirts, great pictures. And if you're buying a custom shirt from a place like Zazzle or Who Shirts or Custom Ink or something like that, where, you're just ordering one online, there's a 98% chance that it was done with direct to garment. It's got a very low cost of print. It works on both light and dark garments. So it prints on white, it prints on black, and everything in between. It prints on cotton only for dark shirts. So in other words, it'll print on white poly, but it won't print on dark poly. And it gives you this one of the things that makes it really high quality is what's called the smoke effect. So if you have fire or smoke or something like that on a shirt, if you can envision the kind of smoke getting wispy as it gets farther from the design, it can only do that because it's putting ink directly onto the fabric. There doesn't have to be continuous layer of something for a transfer to pick up.
So essentially, you're saying like you can print when you have an inkjet printer, it can print one like micro droplet, like a picoliter, one pixel. It can print one pixel dot. So that's the detail you can get down to.
Yeah, and you don't have to have anything next to it.
Okay.
So you get a nice open design. It always prints white ink. You can select not to, but it prints white ink, which is really important. We'll talk about why, but that's what allows it to print on a dark garment. And again, the space requirements, you're going to need the printer itself, which is not small. It's decent size. You can still you'll need at least one heat press and a pre-treatment machine. So you can imagine that, so those are supplies, ink cartridges, the paper that goes onto a heat press. And that's it. Some cleaning supplies.
Yeah. And the amount of space that the printer is going to be bigger than your washer, but probably smaller than your washer and dryer.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Good.
Okay.
That's
so
good.
if a heat press is going to be smaller than the amount of space your stove would take or your sink would take, ish, something like that. And then of course a table.
We've done sample setups where it's pretty easy to put this kind of a setup into a 10 by 10 room.
Yeah. Yeah. And then pre-treat, again, a stove-ish style size space. So
and the whole setup, I would say, is it's very quiet. It's small enough to put into the back of a retail store.
So good. So in a retail store, it's fine because it's quiet. Yep. And the space is reasonable. You do want, if you're in a studio apartment, I hope you don't have a lot of things, right?
No, you're not going to want to do that.
You're going to sleep next to it, right?
You don't want to move this thing up 4 flights of stairs either.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Right?
Yeah. Good. Or yeah, I would imagine I wouldn't want to do that. That would be, I mean, you could.
Yeah.
if your retail space was on the second floor of a mall, I mean,
Yeah.
you could do this. But yeah, moving it into a fourth floor studio apartment is probably not going to be my favorite thing to do there. And the last thing is the production cost on this. What's it cost like to make a shirt, to print a shirt?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to be using good quality ring spun cotton shirts, which can range between $4 and $6. You could get down to $2, but you really don't want to. And then your prints on a white shirt are going to be as low as 17 cents, 35 cents a piece for ink and materials. And you're on a dark shirt, you could spend $1.50, $2.
Okay.
And you can do they're 16 by 20. So you can produce a print that's about 16 by 20.
Yeah, so that's a particularly large, that's a large print. And if you want to know how big that is, take you could take 4 sheets of paper, right, and put them in a rectangle square. And that's not exactly 16 by 20, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
That would be 17 by 22.
Or you could get
right.
Or you could just call ColDesi and get a sample.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. That's a good idea too. But that's your example of how big this thing is. Production cost that is really low. So outside of the t-shirt, because the t-shirt is a part of all of these transactions, but the ink cost is super cheap on this, right?
Yeah, so you're gonna ink is gonna be less than $1 50% of the times, and less than $2 40% of the times, and sometimes you'll spend more.
Okay, good. So we'll summarize that. So I'll summarize it really quick from what I got from you. So the quality of print, amazing. Light and dark garments, but if you're going to do dark, only cotton. You can do full color digital prints that are that smoke effect. You can fade to nothing. You can do any detail anywhere you want, anywhere on the shirt, right? Yeah. It will print white, which is imperative on printing on dark colors, right? And just imagine if this was a black shirt I'm wearing here with a ColDesi logo, the ColDesi logo could not be in black like it is in this gray shirt. It needs to be in white. So it prints white. The space requirements are a large printer, a heat press, a table. Everything needs a table, but it's on the list, and a pretreat machine. And production cost is pretty low. So you can create 10 out of 10 quality, feel, look, wash images at a really low cost.
Yep. And the only other thing I would add is I would give it the award for if you want to put a photo on a black shirt.
Okay. So a photo on the black shirt looks the best. Yeah, photo on a black shirt. You're not going to beat that. I would agree. It definitely has the award for that. There's no other way to do it that's going to look as amazing.
Cool.
So now we'll move over to white toner transfers or digital heat effects. Oakley, Uninet, these are all words and names that are synonymous with this type of printing. And to define it, you take a toner printer, a specialized toner printer. And a toner printer is like the color copy machine you may have used in an office. Right? When you change the cartridge, you shake it when it's running low. There's powder in there. That's toner. So it doesn't use liquid. And that prints on a transfer sheet. This transfer sheet eventually makes its way onto a t-shirt for the sake of this conversation. And that's how you print that.
Yep.
So I was trying to rate the quality of this. And I said 8 out of 10 because it can't do quite as much on the color spectrum or vibrancy as the DTG.
Yeah, it varies too because of the printers themselves.
Yes, and it varies because of the printers themselves. Yep. Right. So the different printers will print differently. Both the printers you mentioned, like the G4 and the Epson, they will print. I'm not going to say a number of colors, but million.
Yeah.
And you're printing right on the shirt, so you have a lot of control over that, and you're printing with white ink, which is super vibrant and white. So you're going to get that 10 out of 10. I give the white toners like an 8 out of 10 because it just can't do everything in the color spectrum or the feel or the wash quite as good as the DTG does. Okay.
Yeah, but it does other things better.
Yes, and that's what we'll get into, right?
Yeah.
So it works on light and darks, which is the same as the DTG. This one will print on cotton and polyester and blends, and I kind of put almost everything, right? There's always an exception. So
almost everything, yeah.
Almost everything. And almost everything, so much to the point where you're not going to find an exception unless it's a very, very specific shirt. So that's a huge bonus, right? Because now you can do dark colored polyester, you can do dark colored cotton, blends, you can do tri-blends. You have a full gamut of apparel you can print. Very cool. It will do full color digital prints as well. So you can print a picture of a face or a picture of a dog or a building or something like that. The difference is it does not fade to nothing. So you need to have kind of a hard stop somewhere.
Right. So that means like if you have a picture of my face, it'll either end at my face or it'll include the whole room. But it won't, you won't be able to pick up the lovely wispy gray hairs that stick out.
Yeah, you would want to put an effect behind you, whether it's you're on some sort of background or an actual picture of the background. And there's different techniques and tricks you could do, like dots, stripes, all different types of stuff like that, to kind of make a faux fade out.
But I will say one thing about the colors of the prints is you're not going to know how that the DTG can be so much better, like on a photo, for example, unless you put them right next to each other. So there are things that we're going to talk about here that are differences between the printers that your customers will be completely unaware of. They're not going to get a full color photo in a digital heat FX print and saying, wow, this isn't as nice as the DTG print that I've got of the same photo.
Yeah, chances are that's not going to.
They're not going to do that.
Right.
They're not going to do that.
And kind of going back to our example, the person who had a shop where they were like, I want to make the best possible shirt. That's their goal. They might hear this and say, so you're saying the DTG picture was better? Yes. Yeah. Okay. That might be part of your decision-making process.
Yeah, right.
And that's okay. You might say, another person might say, well, I might print some faces. I'm not going to focus on that. I really like the idea that I can print on almost any shirt though. Okay. Yeah. So now here's our decision-making process on which one's better. Two different people could very well, at this point in time, have a definition of which one is better for them.
Yep.
Okay. This does print white. White toner transfers do print white. They can also print on hard goods too, because there's papers for that. So that's kind of a side bonus. You can print on a little bit of hard good stuff with DTG, like wood or canvas, but you're not going to make a mug. Yeah. There's certain things you're not going to really do with that printer. You can print on a larger range of hard goods. So you can print on glass, wood, tile, mugs, ceramics, stuff like that, metal.
Yep.
On the white toner transfers. The space requirements on that are, it's just a printer, a heat press, and a table. The printer is reasonable. There are varying degrees of printers in their size.
Yes.
But the largest you're going to find is going to be just about the space of that washer only.
Yeah, that's a good point. Or if you remember what going into an office was like. For example, the Digital Heat FX 9541 is the closest to that big commercial copy machine.
The one we were talking about before. Yeah, color copy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like.
Yep.
And then the smallest, which at this recording is probably the Uninet i560. The iColor i560 under Digital Heat FX branding. And that's going to be about the dimensions of a good laser printer. Maybe a little taller.
Yeah, just the size of a printer you may have owned, or a little bigger, a little bit bigger than that. But desktop, you can have this on a table with a laptop and a notepad and other things on one desk of real size.
It's a win for space.
It's a win for space. So now that we've talked about things here, and that are blossoming thoughts for different people. The space is part of this decision. What it will print on is part of this decision. The rating of the end quality as part of the decision. And So anyway, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, two things I do
Mhm.
want to say is that you'll still need a heat press,
The heat press, yeah.
and you'll need very specific heat presses.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Thought.
Like, and they require a certain amount of space and a certain amount of cost that's included in that. And also, this one falls into a little bit more moderate supply costs. So you'll spend less upfront, but the white toner printer transfers, the easy peel, is usually more expensive for the same size print than DTG.
Yes, and here's actually why in the simplest way. DTG, you're printing ink onto shirt.
Yeah.
Digital heat effects, you're printing ink onto paper, paper onto shirt. Or not ink, I mean, it's a toner, but whatever.
Yeah.
Colors. Colors
Right.
onto paper, paper onto shirt. You've got an extra supply, paper. The DTG is just colors to shirt. So naturally, you would imagine that's less money. Is
Yep.
one less thing to buy.
And I'm gonna say two things. One you're gonna hate, one you
Okay.
like.
All right.
The one that you're gonna like is that one of the great advantages to the white toner transfer printers isn't just the flexibility, it's the idea that you can sell the transfers wholesale.
Okay. I like
So
that.
if
You're right.
if part of your niche is to be a wholesaler to other people that print t-shirts, then this is a 100% great way to do it. You physically can't do that with DTG. You have to deliver a shirt. With the white toner printer or digital heat effects, you can take that transfer that you can put on multiple shirts or objects, and you can sell that to somebody else with a heat press.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah, which are different things. And there's people who have DTG printers that sell wholesale shirts, but they're selling the completed garment versus selling a transfer.
And the thing that I will say that is completely inappropriate for this podcast, is this is the right product if you cannot make a decision about what you want to sell.
Okay.
if you don't know, if look, Mark,
yeah,
I love you guys, but I have no freaking idea. I just know that I want to make stuff and sell it to people. Okay, well, whatever you buy the digital heat effects, you got a 97% chance that you're going to be able to do something.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you're right. I mean, generally speaking, we advise have some sort of a plan before you get going because we want you to succeed. But there's I will say, because I'm a realist, a dream's a dream. Right? Like a dream's a dream. And if you want to own your own business and sell t-shirts and it's a dream you have, and you are still waiting to iron out the future of those details and you're ready to invest money and just see how it goes and you're going to make it work, then I'm not going to say I'm never going to squash on a dream, right? I don't want to ever do that. Unless you want to tell me like you want to, I don't know, do some sort of ridiculous career that is impossible to actually, you want to be a prince of a country. Okay. Move on. Sorry.
Well, there goes that one.
There goes move on. Okay. But you want to sell t-shirts to people and make money. All right, sure. But I would agree. You're right. I mean, the versatility is amazing on it. So that is true.
And it's also our most popular printer right now.
Yeah.
Our most popular product by a lot, by 5 times.
Yeah. It's very popular.
Okay.
So next technology, would you prefer to talk about
sublimation?
Okay, good. Yeah. Talk about it. Tell us.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is really something that, you'll see some stuff on the Coleman & Company site that's branded Best Blanks, which are blanks for sublimation printers. And these things are just like, we're so excited because it's a pretty new product for ColDesi.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's low cost of entry and makes amazing quality stuff. So it really is going to be a contender. By this time next year, it will be the most popular.
Yeah, it's going to be really popular. So quality of the print.
Yeah, it's great.
And so, I rate it. It's hard to rate this because of some limitations that we'll get into. But I mean, I rate it like 9 out of 10.
Yes.
Colors, the feel, the wash. It's hard to give it a number because I don't want to say it's better necessarily than the digital heat effects print or worse than the DTG, but it will work on light colors only, and it works on poly only.
Now, I think while you're talking about color, the 9 out of 10 makes sense because with DTG, you have the option of well, they all have black ink, right? With white toner printers, you know, some of them don't have black and some of them do. Sublimation, you never get black ink. No, that's not
white.
true.
You don't get white.
You never get white ink, right? So that's why, you know, the colors will look a little bit differently. Even on a light colored shirt, you can add white ink, and you can make an image pop more on both the Digital Heat FX and the DTG than you necessarily can get with sublimation.
Yes, and it really is because when you're buying a white T-shirt or a black T-shirt, it's never actually true white or true black.
Yes,
right.
Drives us crazy.
There's color to it. So if you bought 10 white shirts and 10 black shirts, they would all be different degrees of those colors. And you might even look at one white next to another and say, that looks almost gray, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't see by itself, it was white, but in comparison.
We do it with black shirts all the time.
But yeah, so you're right about that, is the ability to print white does a couple things. You get a pure white that you can put your colors on top of, which is amazing. And then you're also mixing that white with other colors, which will create a larger, what we would refer to as a larger gamut of colors. The white and the black and all these things can mix. They all can mix on the T-shirt essentially, and create more degrees of colors, more pinks, more greens, more yellows, you know. The print looks beautiful on the sublimated print. I love the way it looks. It feels knockout because you're not putting anything on the shirt. It's going into the shirt physically.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't feel. It has no feel.
There is no feel. You're changing the kind of you're changing the chemical properties of the shirt. So
you're literally dyeing the shirt.
You're dyeing the shirt at pinpoint color. So that's kind of why I think 9, 10. It could be 10, 10. It could be 8, 10. Depending on how we're rating all these things. Yeah. So I gave it 9, my personal thoughts, but it is all really good. And honestly, all three of what we're talking about here are all great, top notch. Yeah. Maybe 9, maybe 8, depending on if I need it to be on a black shirt, it's a 0 out of 10.
Right, because you can't do it.
Okay. If it's on a white shirt, it might be one of my favorites. You know, but I don't want polyester. It's a 0 out of 10. Okay,
and you know, it's gonna feel better than the Digital Heat FX and the white toner prints. It doesn't feel like it's there. It's gonna feel about the same as DTG, but you're trading that for the color.
Yeah, and you're trading it for what it can go on. Okay, so now we're beginning to understand sublimation is limited on colors and the type of material, but the finished product's phenomenal. So it does full digital color prints, tons of colors. It will do that fade to nothing smoke type of effect. It does not print white though. So if you want to do a yellow shirt and somebody has a logo with white in it, no, you cannot do that, right? If somebody has a logo that's a little cartoon kid smiling with big white teeth because it's a dentist and it's a little cartoon kid smiling with bright white teeth, don't put it on a yellow shirt.
Right. That's a very specific example.
Well, they're going to think the kid doesn't brush.
If you don't, here's the thing: is if you don't have the white ink to put what's called an underbase behind a design, the color of the shirt that you put the transfer on is going to influence the color of the graphic in the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and you don't have white, so you can't print white teeth or white eyes. So that shirt has to be on white. Okay. So you don't print white. It will print on a ton of hard goods.
Yeah, man. If you've gotten a mug, like I got a mug from my daughter for Father's Day, with photos of my grandkids on it.
Nice.
And that, it's 100%, it's sublimation. Like if you've gotten a decorated mug, it has been sublimated. There's almost, other than Digital Heat FX, which it can do very well, not many people do it. So it's going to be a sublimation mug. It's a great application. Yeah,
most of it. And I'm actually using a Digital Heat FX printed mug right here.
Yeah, I noticed that. It was great.
It's a red mug. There is white. We printed white. And other colors. So
you can tell it's not been sublimated.
Yeah, because it's a full color mug. Now, if that mug is sublimation friendly, I could have put maybe a black logo on it, but we wouldn't get that white.
Yep.
You can't remove it. So the space requirements for sublimation printers about the same as that digital heat effects. Desktop space, you need a printer, you need a heat press, you need a table.
The Sawgrass printers are small. It's a 11 by 17 printer, an 8.5 by 11. It's going to be
it's the size of any printer you've had almost.
Any printer. Yep.
Yeah. And the production cost, moderate / low.
Okay.
You do have ink, paper, shirt, the steps, but the paper cost is a bit less.
Okay.
Because you
can you give me an example, like a rough idea?
I can. I'm gonna have to pull. I'm gonna pull it up for you real quick, just because I have too many numbers in my head right now. But I'll say why it's less. Why it's a bit less is because the toner prints on the paper. There's actually 2 sheets of paper you use for every print. One is your print paper. One is your what we'd call like your polymer paper, or your it's the adhesive
glue. Yeah,
glue.
It's confusing. It's confusing because you're holding up 2 fingers for each. So it's like there's 4.
How about this?
4 pieces of paper.
Is that better?
Stop.
So you can get an 11 by 17 100 sheets of sublimation paper for like $30. Okay. So what's that, like 30 cents?
Yeah.
Right. And then your ink cost, is a bit, but low to moderate. Yeah. The cost is not quite the cost of your digital heat effects transfer. It's not quite as good as the DTG. It's kind of stuck somewhere in the middle. It's got advantages and disadvantages. There's no glue, so you're pinpoint dyeing a shirt, which makes it feel really nice. But you don't have white, and you're limited to light colored garments.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's the most economical cost of entry so far.
Most economical cost of entry you can get in this business. You can buy paper, mugs, a mug wrap, use your oven at home, and a printer, and you could be in this thing for like $700-800.
Yeah, I mean, let's say that most people that are going to do it as a business end up in the $3,000 to $3,500 range.
Yep, 3,000.
You can start. You can start for under $1,000, no problem.
Yeah, well, and if you already have a DTG printer and you realize that you want to add this, or you already do transfers that you buy on the internet and you want to add sublimation to your business, you might just need the printer and some paper. Yeah. So you're like $600-700. So it depends what you're doing, and where you're starting from. But for a few $1,000, you can be like locked and loaded and fully ready from scratch.
Yep.
Okay. So now we have 2 more to go over. Right. So I think we're doing good on time. I talk. Do you want to talk about the print and cut systems, or do you want me to ride with it?
You want to do print and cut next? Yeah, there it is. And by print and cut, we're using a specific example.
Sure.
Okay, and that is the Roland Versus Studio BN20, because that is probably it's the sweet spot for this technology.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say we didn't mention that in the DTG world, you can spend $500,000 on a direct-to-garment printer, right? And it's the same. Mm-hmm. It's not quite the same range, but you can go crazy spending money on large format sublimation printers. And the same goes for the print and cut. There are big commercial operations that have much more expensive and larger machines available, but they all basically do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can think of a print and cut system like the Roland BN20. It looks kind of like a cutter with ink cartridges. So you have the best and worst of both worlds, right? You're using vinyl and you're using ink. So ink like in sublimation or DTG, and vinyl like in just a regular cutter. And you pull up a file on your computer and you print and cut at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you get full color prints that get cut out of a piece of vinyl.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way of putting it. You're creating your own digital full color transfer, with vinyl as your paper per se,
Right.
you know? Now the quality of the print, we talked a bit about this, is like, it's hard to put a number, but we're trying to put numbers. So put
Yeah.
maybe a 7 out of a 10, slightly less than some of the others because it is vinyl, which means it's inherently got some thickness to it,
Yeah.
right? And a bit of a feel, which can be, which some folks will feel this and say it feels like a really nice quality screen print, and it could be considered a positive. Others will feel it and say, yeah, it's too thick. I wish
It's
it
like a
was thinner.
sticker.
It's like a
Yeah,
sticker.
I mean, it gets similar kinds of comments to digital heat effects,
Yeah,
depending on what you're printing.
similar to that. Now, we'll get into some more of some things why the rating is a little bit different than that. But it's going to be the thickest print. It doesn't mean that it's uncomfortable, but going back to examples, fishing shirt with a giant fish on it, out in the sun, getting wet
Yeah.
and sweaty, having a piece of polyurethane glued to the front of your shirt in a big giant fish is not
Not
going to be as
optimal.
breathable as the
Yeah.
sublimation or even the DTG on a light colored shirt, right? It's going to be a lot softer, breathable. It's going to dry. The print and cut is you're putting a piece of vinyl, polyurethane probably, or PVC on a shirt. So
Yeah.
there's inherently a thicker feel to it, less breathability. It will work on dark and light colors though, which is great.
Yes.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and it will work on cotton, poly, and blends.
It doesn't
Almost
care.
everything.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. It
which is
doesn't care.
great. It will do the full color digital prints. Awesome. Love that.
Yep.
It doesn't fade to nothing. Okay. And it actually, generally speaking, I'm going to be very, very general here. Generally speaking, you kind of need a border and like a bleed space. Okay.
Okay. That's a
So
good point.
most of the time, if you see
There'll be
this,
an outline.
if there's a ColDesi logo, like if you can see my shirt in the video, great. If you have the ColDesi logo, then you typically are going to have like maybe just a white background to it and a border. That's the typical look you're going to see for a print and cut because of the speed, the weeding of the vinyl, and then also, even though your cutter and your printer are really, really accurate, because you're using a knife to cut something, it's never going to be 1,000,000,000% accurate, right? Because you're using a knife to cut something. Anytime anything is ever die cut out of anything like that, they always print a little extra. And
Yeah.
this way, because you could be off by a hair and the hair looks funny, or you print, or you just cut outside it a bit, and it doesn't matter if your hair off because you got a border.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
the process is definitely different too. You know, with the direct to garment printing, you're loading the shirt into a DTG printer and it's printing directly on it. And with both of the sublimation and the white toner print, digital heat FX and Sawgrass, you know, you're creating a transfer. So there's another step in the process. You know, with the print and cut system with the BN20, there's no glue sheet that you use, but the extra step is you have to weed it. So you have a choice. You can either make a one big sticker, like if you'll picture a school logo that's just one entire graphic, then you're just peeling that off the vinyl, right? And heat pressing it onto the shirt. With the, you know, if you are doing a something more detailed, where on the ColDesi logo, if I need to pick out the,
There
there it
you go.
is. If I need to pick out the zero, the O or the
Yeah.
E, you know, you're going to be using vinyl pick tools. So it really is like a digital, you know, it's a vinyl print. You're printing on vinyl. Everything that you have to do to get a vinyl transfer ready for application, you have to do with this.
And we're going to talk more about that next, vinyl specifically. And also, since you're creating a transfer that's printed first, you need to mask it at the end before you put it on a t-shirt. So after you print and you're all done and it looks like you're ready to go, you put another sticker on top and peel it off. And now you're ready to get on the shirt. So it's a few steps. You print, then you cut, then you weed, then you mask, then you shirt. So there's some steps there. The quality can look awesome, It's super versatile on the light and darks and cotton, poly, and blends. You have a little bit of downside um, with the border and the bleed and things like that, but it still looks awesome, and it feels soft, but
Yeah,
it's not as soft as the sublimation or the
you don't have to use the print feature. You can use it just for regular t-shirt vinyl as well.
Okay, good.
And I will sorry, I will.
Yeah, let me pause you for a quick minute, Mark. I think check your microphone and audio for a moment, and I'll waste some time while you're doing that.
Sure.
The production cost on that's kind of moderate again. Multiple materials. You have ink and you have vinyl and you have mask. So you've got a few different things that you're working with. And we can compare this to the others. The DTG, you just have the ink. The sublimation, you just have the ink and the one paper. The digital heat effects, you have the ink and two papers. The roll-in versus studio print and cut, you've got ink and the vinyl and the mask. Okay, so you've got different materials. The cost kind of moderate. All right, Mark, we're checking back in with you.
I'm still working here for a second.
Okay, you sound good though.
Do I?
You sound good.
Okay, cool. Sound good right now.
Okay.
So the thing that I wanted to point out was this is one that this is probably the only one of the systems that we're talking about today that I would almost say the primary thing that it does well isn't t-shirts.
Okay.
You know, like this is a best t-shirt printer comparison.
Mm-hmm.
People do use it to make custom t-shirts, custom jackets, things like that. But honestly, like it's a 24-inch Echo Solvent style cutter that will do banners, stickers, window clings, signage for the side of vehicles. I would put this in, typically I do put it in the 80-20 rule.
Mm-hmm.
If 20% of your business is going to be t-shirts, like if you also want to do shirts,
okay,
then I'd probably, then this is a great option for you. But if you're doing your niche markets and your plans and everything, and you when you look at it, you suddenly realize I'm going to do more pinstriping and locker stickers and things for backpacks and signage, and I'm going to do every window in town, with business logos and words, then this is definitely the printer that you want.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that for that, because like you said, the t-shirt print quality is like a tick lower than the others if we're having to compare.
Yep.
But you can, if you're doing work for a brewery, you can do the beer bottle label, the window sticker on the door. You can do the shirts and the hats. You can also do stickers that they give out to their customers. They can do bumper stickers for people. You can do the decal that goes in the glass of the back of the owner's car, all that stuff. So you could do a ton of stuff with this. You could do window cling signs that cling on and cling off, to change out different specials.
Super versatile.
Yes, yeah, so very, very versatile, very cool, compact. The vinyl you print on is white. So it doesn't print white, but it creates white.
Yeah.
Okay. So theoretically, you could create this mug that I'm showing here.
Yep.
However, it'd be a sticker on the mug. Generally speaking, you don't put a sticker on a mug, right? You want something that's a little more permanent.
And you don't put stickers in the dishwasher.
You don't put, mainly that. So it's great for sign production. It's pretty darn good for t-shirts too.
Yep.
But yeah, maybe, but not to pick for you, but take that into consideration.
Yeah. I think that it's and if someone is looking at a t-shirt that was printed on the Roland, if they're looking for it by itself, they'll probably love it.
Yeah. If this logo had a little white border around it, and it was printed on a white vinyl with the Roland, you would look at my shirt and you would say, "Man, that looks nice." It looks nice. Your customer will be happy.
Again, they're not going to put it. They're not going to do the same logo with the BN20, with the Sawgrass, with the Epson DTG printer, with the 3 digital heat FX printers.
Yeah, and then a
They're not going to put
G4
those side by
inside.
side. Figure it
Yeah,
out.
they're all going to look great.
Yeah.
Space requirements. You do have the print cutter, which is bigger than some of the other printers we've talked about, but not quite a DTG, but almost, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's at least 2.5 or 3 of a desktop printer wide.
Yeah, so it's a bit bigger, but not huge. Still compact enough. You need a heat press still if you're
Yep.
going to do shirts. If you're just going to do the stickers, you actually don't need it. But then we're not talking about
Just
t-shirt
peel it
printer.
off. Yeah.
And you need a table. You always need a table. Okay, so we talked, and I already talked about the production cost while you're working on mics. So we're good to move on to the last on the list, which is cutters.
Yep.
So Roland makes cutters. Graph Tech is another brand that we carry. Those are 2 amazing products, super high quality. And so the way that this works is you have a roll of material, similar to how the Versa Studio works, but you don't print on it. You just cut. So you cut one color at a time, and you make shirts with that. If it's a white and black on a blue shirt, you cut your white, put it on the shirt, cut your black, put it on the shirt, and then now you have the completed shirt.
Yep.
And that's pretty much how that works.
Yeah,
When you cut something out,
it's one color at a time. It's not
So
just
one
one color designs, but it's one color at a time.
so this is the first thing and only thing on the list that's not digital.
Right.
Okay.
That's a good point.
And there's no liquid, there's no powder, there's no color mixing. It's one color at a time. You buy the colors, you cut the colors.
Yep.
After you cut them, you remove away any of the stuff you don't want to put onto the t-shirt, aka weeding. So if you cut out the word ColDesi, you remove the inside of the O, the inside of the E, you peel away everything around it, and now you just see the word ColDesi in one color, and you put that on a shirt. If you want a second color,
it's the commercial version of a Qriket.
Commercial version of a Qriket or silhouette.
Yep.
10 times faster, 10 times bigger, 10 times better. It's legit commercial version of something like that. So if you know what that is, you know what it is.
If you're going to do lettering on the back of a jersey, like somebody's name going on the back of a jersey, this is what you want to use.
Yeah. And we have a sports vinyl that's specifically for that, right? Cool. So we talked about an example earlier, the game day jersey. There's a material specifically for game day jerseys that you put into your cutter. Okay. So we gave this on a 7 out of 10. Really, this maybe 6, maybe needs to be a 6. I don't know. Again, these are arbitrary numbers that don't mean anything.
But I got to tell you, I think the feel is a 10.
The feel is a 10.
If it's a Triton vinyl, if it's a good quality vinyl, if it's not like metallic or if there's nothing special about it, if it's just a good color, then the Triton vinyl feels amazing.
We sell a brand on colemancompany.com called Triton, which it's a really thin, really soft. When you hit it onto the shirt, it almost feels like nothing's there.
Yeah, it's great.
It's really hard to pick out unless you've layered like 3-4 layers on top of each other. It's really thin, really light.
It's at least a 9.
Yeah, so the feel's like a 9, but you can't print colors. Right? You're not printing colors. It's not digital. So that kind of knocks it down a little bit, right? And so anyway, point is it's really great, but you're not printing colors. So it's a little deceiving to say which is the best printer, but people will call a cutter a printer all the time. So it works on light and dark
materials, right?
Works on just about any material, almost everything, cotton poly blend. You do like all your colors are based on color palettes, right? So everything else before this, you have a theoretical millions or hundreds of thousands of colors, right? Every combination of CMYK and W you can imagine it, right? With cutter, if you're just cutting materials, you maybe have dozens of colors, hundreds if you're using like every brand on the planet, maybe, but not an infinite amount.
Right.
You must layer to achieve multiple colors. You can't mix colors, blend, create new shades.
Right.
You're doing a single color at a time.
That's a good way to put it. You can put as many colors next to each other as you would like.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put them on top of each other, the one on top wins.
Yes, the one on top wins. Exactly. That's how most of them are designed to be.
Yep.
You can't fade out. It's all very, very hard stops because it's a physical piece of material you're gluing and cutting on with a knife. So it's a hard stop. You're not going to
Yeah.
fade out into smoke or clouds. A cloud is going to be a cartoon cloud,
Yeah, that's
right?
a,
It's not going to be a wisp of smoke.
yeah.
So you can do a side note on this. You can do stickers.
Yep.
As if they're solid color stickers, a logo with 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever colors, you can do that. Glitter.
But again, the differentiation there is the Roland is a print and cut, so you could do a full color picture as a sticker.
Yes, you could do our logo of ColDesi, which is technically this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colors in it.
Yep.
You do that in one shot. If you're going to cut that, you have to cut 6 colors, weed 6 colors, create 6 transfers, heat press 6 times.
And you have to drink a lot because nobody wants to do that.
Yeah. And you're going to be in front of a heat press for a long time, so you will be sweating. So you need to hydrate.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was going to say next before we glitter.
Oh yeah.
You have glitter here. So this is now the only one. Digital Heat Effects can do a bit with glitter, but like true, vibrant, bright metallic, bright glitter, and then other features: super stretchy, super thick, puff materials, holographic materials. You get into some cool things because we can create things on rolls.
Yeah.
Made out of polyurethane and PVC and such. So you could do crazy cool effects with glitter and metallics.
Yeah. If you're not already a crafter or crafty kind of person, getting into working with a cutter will definitely bring that out in you.
Yeah.
Because everything you try gets cooler and cooler as you try it.
Yeah. And it's I love doing it. I think it's really fun. Some of the stuff that I've made for my family, some of their favorite ones are the vinyl ones.
Yeah.
Right. Just because we had a really unique color, or you combine glitter and white and black and it pops off the shirt. Looks very cool.
Yep.
Space? The space is about the same as the other printers, a little bit less than that BN20 Versa Studio. Maybe ish.
It depends on the size of the cutter.
Depends on the size of the cutter. If we're going smallest, that's a commercial grade. It's going to be smaller than the BN20 because you don't have the ink portion of it.
Right. So
you just need that much less space. You can definitely do a tabletop. You'll need a heat press and you'll need a table, but computer heat press table, laptop, and you could do this. I've done this. I'm on my patio table here. I've had the cutter out here many times with my cutter, and I've done it right here. So
they're super reliable too. I know, like, it's a mechanical piece of equipment. You've got to change the blades and things like that, but it's a very reliable thing to use.
There's no ink, there's no print head, there's no toner, there's no fuser, there's no. There's a lot of things you don't have.
No.
Yeah. So because you don't have all of these things, there's less things to break.
Yep.
So very, very, not that all the other machines are going to be down all the time and stuff like that, but they are going to require degrees of maintenance, which we didn't really get into. But I mean, if you have a good business plan, right, and you're going to make money with it, then maintaining that, yes, that shouldn't matter. Oh, I don't want to do more work.
Right.
I mean, okay.
So how about the production costs when you're using vinyl? I've never really.
Yeah. You know what? It's low to moderate. I say it's hard to really pinpoint a cost on vinyl. But so I would say, if you're saying a piece of vinyl, let me get my calculator because I want to do something because I don't have. I thought I remembered it. I thought it was about 15 cents a square inch. But I'm sorry, a linear inch. But let me just verify that real quick. So this will be momentary, but I think this is a good exercise. So he got just like regular white vinyl, right? And you're gonna buy like a decent sized roll of it, right? A nice size roll. So $140 for a roll of that, right? That's 25 yards. Okay. 25 times 3, 75 feet times 12, 900 inches. Okay. 139 divided by 900 inches. I was right. 15.4.
15 cents. By the way, that was riveting. The people that were driving in their car, were just like enjoying trying to follow along.
Good. We nailed it. So 15 cents for a linear inch. So this is 20 inches wide and you're going 1 inch up. So if you're doing a logo that's an inch tall and it's 4 inches, you could fit maybe 4 of those across.
Okay.
Right. So for that 15 cents, you made 4 logos.
Yeah.
Pretty inexpensive.
Pretty
now,
good.
as designs get larger and you're doing bigger logos and there's more negative space, you are throwing away more of the vinyl. Right.
Yeah.
So the cost varies, but about 15 cents a linear inch is the number that we like to talk about. So the cost is low to moderate because it's also one color for that 15 cents. If it's 4 colors, now it's 15, 30, 45, 60, now it's 60 cents, right? So it's low to moderate. You are investing a good amount in supplies, which is something that I consider to be a downside because that roll that's 140, you have white. Now you need black, red, blue. Now eventually you've got $1,000 worth of materials and you're good to go.
You're just working.
You're just working, but you are re-upping on colors. If a customer comes to you and says they want metallic gold and you do not own any and they only want 5 shirts, you have to make it
say no or buy the gold.
Yeah, you just say I'm going to buy the gold to say yes, and I'll make money with that later. That first job is going to just pay for my whole roll of gold, though, right? So there's some thoughts with that. Where on your digital printers, no matter what color they ask for, you pretty much can do.
Yeah, that and I mean, as point of comparison, that 15 or 30 cents that you spend for white vinyl, might get you an 8x10 full color photo on white cotton with the DTG printer.
Yes.
So
good point.
And the cutter is between like $1,500 and $2,000.
Yeah, roughly.
Like that, right. So it's another example of that, investing up front versus supplies and choosing your capabilities and what you need to accomplish based on your business.
Yeah. It's a good point. And by this time, right, you've learned about the technologies. Yeah. You should be able to start to understand which ones make the most sense for who you want to sell to.
And I've got an observation and a curveball.
Okay.
Because we always talk about it inside the walls of ColDesi. If you're in the custom apparel business, you should have a cutter. Like I don't care what else you have. Like you should be issued. It's like when you move into South Tampa, into the neighborhood that I live in, they give you a Yorkie, like here's your Yorkie. Welcome to South Tampa. It should be, you just you shouldn't be allowed to buy anything without a cutter, for if you're going to get a printer machine. And that brings me to the idea that not only should you develop your plan of your niche and who you want to sell to and what kind of things you want to sell, and then choose the best t-shirt printer for you, but you shouldn't restrict yourself to just one of these devices, because the answer may be or should be more than one thing.
Yeah, and over time it will be, right? Yeah. And so you can start with your one, right, and have a plan for that. Yeah. Many people start with 2. I don't know the percentages of numbers. Do you know how many people start with 2?
At least 30% of the people.
30%. Okay. So about a third of the people start with 2 because they realize it just makes sense because you wrote your plan and you thought about all this stuff that we spelled out and you had 2 probably in mind. You may have had 3, but 1 maybe hits 75% of what you wanted and 2 hits 100. And that's why 30% of people oftentimes get with the second one, get the second one too. So you have to consider what that means. Now we get to talk about budget, I think, real quick, because we're on a long episode here, but it's a lot of good information.
Yeah.
So budget. You've got what I said before. You have a good business plan and you know what you have written down as profitable. You've got a reasonable way of obtaining money, meaning you have credit. So you can borrow money from a bank, you can lease a piece of equipment, you can get it financed, you can put it on a credit card. So then everything's affordable at that point in time because you've got a business plan and how you're going to make money with this. It doesn't matter if it costs $1,000 or $10,000. You have a plan in place that you have put some diligence into making sure it works.
And it's hard to think about that because, big numbers, that's, when we get comments on Facebook, when we advertise digital heat FX machines, and let's say it's a $10,000 system, we get a percentage of people that tell us we're crazy. They would never pay $10,000 for this piece of equipment. And it's because they haven't thought it through. They don't know that they can, or they just don't have enough experience to realize that that's not a lot of money to start a business.
Yeah. I mean, so
right?
one might say that $65,000 is a crazy amount of money to spend on an automobile.
Right.
Right. But if
I'm one that would say,
yeah, sure. I'm on that train with you. Right. I don't own that, and I it's just not my thing. But if you own that roofing company I mentioned earlier, and you have trailers of stuff you're moving around, big trailers of stuff you're moving around, and you're going to a wholesaler that's 3 hours away, and you're putting 5 tons worth of stuff on a trailer and bringing it over, that business investment of a $70,000 truck makes perfect sense to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be silly to try
how much money you're going to make.
Yeah, it would be silly to do that in a Camry. Impossible, I would say.
I will say though that the number that you should keep in mind when you're thinking about your budget and how much money you can spend is that probably, the least our customers that buy a commercial piece of equipment make on a custom t-shirt is probably around $10.
Mm-hmm.
And the average is probably closer to 15 or 18. And there are people that are making $30 or $40 a shirt.
And this is from going on to our customer lists,
Custom Apparel Startups
Facebook group. We ask people this, we survey, and this is what folks tell us. This is what they say. This isn't stuff we make up.
So if you take a look at let's take the G4 direct-to-garment printer, which is the priciest thing that we talked about today.
Okay.
So let's say you even get one of the bundles, not just the printer itself, but you get the whole shebang for just under $30,000, whatever a shebang is. I think
the shebang bundle. I'm not familiar with that.
Shebang bundle.
Okay.
Just under $30,000, it's a little under $600 a month to finance.
Okay.
So at $10 a shirt, you have to sell 60 shirts in a month to pay for your printer. At $15 a shirt, it's less.
Mm-hmm.
At $30 a shirt, it's less.
At $600 a shirt, is it one?
It's just the one.
Okay.
It's just the one. It's the one shirt. So you get the point. Think about it in number of shirts that you need to sell.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to sell 20 shirts a month, that means that at $15 a shirt, you've got $300. To finance your equipment with. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And some of this stuff goes down to less than $100 a month.
Less than $100. It's 10 shirts.
Yeah. That's why it's honestly just stop buying as much Starbucks. That's how much it is.
That's right.
Don't go out to dinner once less, whatever I'm trying to say.
Yes.
That's how little this is. It's actually just paying attention to some of your money and moving it around. That's how inexpensive a lot of this stuff is. And a lot of side hustle folks do that, right? Now, let's take one step down. If let's just say you are starting from a financial situation that's not ideal. You're broke. You're broke for whatever reason it might be. You had another failed business. You had a terrible divorce. You had a bankruptcy or a foreclosure due to some sort of unforeseen financial condition you were put in. And now you're saying, I work with the cash I have. I can't really borrow. I don't have the means to borrow. So then the budget comes into play more.
Yep.
And you looked at your business and you said, well, the G4 is what I thought I wanted. So you have to say, is there a technology that I can afford that will lead me to the G4 level? Can I alter my business plan a little bit to get me there? And that's what a lot of folks do as well, is where they say, I really had this idea of making this, but I still have the dream that we talked about. So in my dream, I'm going to alter my plan to get to that point. And that's where the budget matters more. So low budget stuff, the sublimation and the cutter are just dynamite.
Yeah, you can do some amazing things.
Amazing stuff. I love them. We've already rated the quality of the stuff that comes out of it's great. What you can do is different, and what you can do it on is different. So you'll have to have a plan that works around that. But if the dream is to get there, then you make the plan that fits that. And both of these things for a couple $1,000, you could be pretty set nicely.
Yeah.
For a couple $1,000.
Or, I mean, again, with budget, maybe as you listen to this podcast, you were inspired by opportunities you didn't realize that were out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say that you are interested in this because you know a bunch of people that are screen printers and they're all making tons of money screen printing. So you're looking to get into that business. And you heard that you can sell wholesale transfers with digital heat effects. So now you've got an addition to your business plan of, you were looking at sublimation or you were looking at DTG. Now you've got this additional idea where I can do wholesale. Maybe that adds budget to the picture.
Yes. And if you know a whole bunch of screen printers, it's probably a good idea to get into some sort of wholesale transfer business to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's opportunity for you.
Yeah.
So that's why I think budget comes to the end, is because it's important to understand all of this stuff. And one could say, listen, I know I'm broke from the beginning. Can't you just tell me what I can do for $1,000?
Sure.
Right? Sure. But I think I like the idea of starting with the plan and the dream and what you really want to do and the idea that you have, because that is a higher level goal. And just because you don't have the money to do, or the means, or somebody to borrow from to do that now, doesn't mean that you don't achieve this goal through another means by saying, okay, well, I'll start with the sublimation and I could do a lot of that stuff just on the dark light colored garments though.
Yeah.
And then when I get to the point in time, I'm going to step up and I'll get the white toner printer or the DTG or whatever it is to be able to do the dark colors too.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent a long time talking about each one of these technologies and being as objective as we can. I think we've done a pretty good job of that. But I mean, really, the best way to work this through and figure out which technology is right for you is just to hop on the phone with somebody that knows. So if you call ColDesi, or you talk to your account rep, with Coleman and Company, they'll help you figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
They'll map it out with you, say, okay, I want to do this, and I think I've got this much money to spend, and, I'm going to sell online only. And this is my niche and things like that. And they'll go, okay, it sounds like the best thing for you is going to be this. Here's why I think so. Or it might be these two things. Maybe you're better off with a sublimation printer and a cutter than you are with a digital heat FX i560. Or maybe you're better off with a DTG printer and just pump, $25 worth of profit in every shirt for the first 8 months, and then add the sublimation printer afterwards so you can do more promotional products. There's a lot of different ways to go. And remember too, that this is not one decision that you're making, right? It's not let me say that. It's not the last decision that you're going to make.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. You're not going to be, we have very few customers that buy an embroidery machine from us and they just do embroidery. Or they buy a cutter from us and they just do that. They might do that for a while. But we sell tons of machines. The second machine is our favorite sale, because it means that, you're doing a lot and you're seeing opportunities and you're growing your business in those different directions.
Yeah. Yeah. And starting with the plan is one of the most important things to get to that, to grow to that second machine, to do more options for more people, to be able to sell to your customers more things. I mean, so it's a wonderful thing. But now that we've gone through this, I really think if you're thinking about investing in something else for your business, this is a great opportunity to understand how to evaluate that. And I think you'll also appreciate somebody saying, you don't want a cutter, right? You don't want a cutter. Don't do that for your business.
Yeah.
Because in your head, you're saying, well, yeah, but I wanted to make jerseys for high school football team because I know somebody, right?
Yeah.
Well, what other technology are you going to take a mesh shirt and put something that can be tackled on besides the cutter technology, right? I mean, that's what it's made for that.
Yeah.
So for them to tell you it's a bad idea, they don't know what you know, which is your plan and your business. So that's why it's really important to have the plan first, know where you want to go. And then if you want to ask opinions of people out there, but opinions are like something, everybody's got one. Isn't that that's a saying?
Something. Yeah. I would just say don't. If you want to ask a bunch of people's opinions, it's my least favorite question on any of the Facebook groups.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your
absolutely.
favorite way to do this? What's your this?
No, I'll tell you the fact that all of these technologies have thousands of people across the world doing them, making money, means that they're all good.
They all work.
They all work. They're all good. None of them
make
suck.
money with any of them.
Yes. Plenty of people suck.
Yeah.
But all the technologies are good and cool in their own ways. Finding the right one for you and your business is the most important thing. And the person who is not happy with the equipment they chose maybe prematurely chose a piece of technology that wasn't right for their business plan. Yeah, and I think that's the best thing to learn.
That's the nicest way to put it.
That's a nice way to put it. But it's true, we've talked to people who didn't like their DTG experience, but they bought it to do black polyester shirts.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not like an actual real example. It might be, but I mean that would be an example where it would say, well, that doesn't do that. No wonder you're so unhappy with your Prius because you bought it to travel 100 miles with 2 tons worth of stuff in it.
Yeah.
No wonder you hate your Prius. You hate your dually truck because you're an Uber driver.
Yeah.
And you get 2 miles to the gallon. You don't make any money,
I'm fascinated. Going on Uber as soon as we stop this to see if I can find somebody with a dually while we're driving around.
One time a friend of mine got into a 2-passenger pickup truck with just a fan blowing at their face in the middle of the summer.
Nice.
Yeah. In Florida summer, by the way.
That's great.
Which is the hottest place around.
I think that's a good story to end on.
That's fantastic. That was good. This was a long one. Hopefully it was a lot of good information. We packed a lot into one episode. So maybe we're going to talk more about these in the future, maybe even on the individual podcasts to dive even deeper.
Yep, sounds good. All right, everybody. As usual, thanks for listening to the Custom Apparel Startups podcast. Share it with a friend and listen to the next one. This has been Mark Stevenson from ColDesi.
And Mark Vila from ColDesi, featuring ColemanandCompany.com as your source for supplies, apparel, blanks, etc. Check it out.
Nice. Have a great business.